I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater.
Let's get right into it. We're watching a flying saucer make a pass over the western United States. So is pretty much everybody else in the country. Now, it's not doing anything but going that away, but people are running away in panic anyway, because that's what people do. Over at the Pentagon, those guys are doing what they do.
Interceptor missiles alert.
The general wants to show off his pretty maids all in a row. Or he's proud of how big his missile is, I'm not sure which. We know Frank Ferguson from several things, and I've talked about him before. We first saw him in Superman, and one of the more interesting things about that is he helped tutor George Reeves in the fine art of acting. Here, he's an old white guy with too much authority.
Interceptor missiles stand by.
I wouldn't wait too long, General.
I'd feel a lot better about this, Tobin, if I knew what it was and where it came from.
Oh, we know that it's penetrated our radar screen, ignored our signals, violated just about every international security regulation in the book. Isn't that enough?
No, it isn't. They watched this thing go from Seattle to the Mexico border in less than a minute. It won't occur to either of those guys that maybe the reason we can't raise them by radio is because they're too advanced to use something as unreliable as radio. They're also ignoring the fact that if this thing is from another world, it might not know or care about the national boundaries we've set up to fight over.
She's turning out the sea, sir. She seems to be losing altitude.
Missile number 1, start final countdown.
Don't look so guilty, General. From the Aleutians all the way down to Los Angeles, this thing's got people hiding under their beds screaming for help.
And it has done what to make them act like that? Oh, right, it exists.
9.
Don't stop it now, we're gonna...
There she goes.
7, stop the countdown. Hold your fire.
His missile doesn't stay vertical that well in the water. Funny thing, the Seaview just got an urgent message to head to the area where that thing went in. At the location, they meet up with a helicopter so they can take on a passenger.
Well, our passenger is Rear Admiral Walter Tobin. You know him?
Trigger-happy Tobin, the scourge of the seven seas.
You know him.
Trigger-happy Tobin. I'm not sure that's a nickname I'd want. Admiral Tobin happens to be the admiral that was trying to get the general to hurry up and shoot. I'd say he lives up to the name.
This thing dropped down out of the Aleutians. Made a half a dozen passes across the nation and scared the daylights out of hundreds of thousands of civilians.
Yeah, how dare they be up there and... What did they do that's so terrible again?
We finally got a fix on it. Before we were able to launch a missile, the thing dropped out of sight into the sea.
That's the last you heard of it?
Well, we dispatched the Jefferson and the Madison to look for it, but they never got a sighting.
So now it's our turn to go find nothing, right?
However, we have reason to believe that the Madison got close.
Why?
She reported making a metal contact at 3,500 feet, but seconds later, she was swept into some sort of an undersea vortex. Her last report said she was breaking up and she was unable to get out of the current.
Okay, that's not good. The sub was lost with all hands. He considers that plenty of evidence that these guys, whoever or whatever they are, have hostile intentions and have to be destroyed. Even though the mystery object was sitting still and the Madison was the apparent aggressor. But those kinds of subtleties are lost on Admiral Tobin. We're looking at veteran character actor Charles McGraw. He had a rough time breaking into the business, even though his craggy looks and gravelly voice made him perfect for roles like the grizzled cop, the hard-nosed gangster. If it required someone who looked and sounded like a tough guy, he was your man. Yet, even though he had been acting in one form or another since age 5 and had gone to school to learn the trade, he wound up working as everything from movie usher to low-budget dancer to professional boxer before he finally started getting some roles. Once Hollywood figured out what they had here, he had plenty of work. Tragically, he would never get to finish some of it. In 1980, he was taking a shower, slipped, and fell through a glass shower door. The glass severed an artery in his arm, and he bled to death before paramedics could get to him. His accident prompted California to enact a law requiring all shower doors to be made of safety glass so this couldn't happen to anyone else. How effective an actor was he? Well, you already want to punch him in the nose, don't you?
It's our job to get it before it gets us.
Considering it crash-landed in the ocean, and except for contact that he made, it hasn't been seen or heard from since, I'm not sure what he thinks it wants to get. Or maybe he thinks it's already got it. It's hard to tell with a one-track mind like his.
SAC will police the skies, and our nuclear fleet will police the waters. So far, the saucer has eluded every attempt to capture it or identify it. And since that it refuses to acknowledge any of our signals or warnings, we must assume that it's hostile craft and act accordingly.
We must we? Why? He came to that conclusion by assuming several other things, such as they know what radio is, they understand our language or signals or anything else, they want to contact us at all, the list goes on and on. None of that has been brought up or even hinted at, which apparently proves his point.
That don't make no sense at all.
He's explaining the mission to the crew, and they're not taking it very well. He said they're going to battle with they know not what, but it's got to be hostile because it's there. Needless to say, his final assumption is our weapons can destroy this thing. They pick up the metal contact and hit the whirlpool that the Madison mentioned. Unlike the Madison, though, the Seaview can ride it out and get through it with no damage except a few frazzled nerves. Okay, a lot of frazzled nerves. Nelson and Crane start musing that maybe these guys are trying to communicate. The question is, how do we answer?
The torpedoes, Nelson. What the devil are you waiting for?
A reason to use them.
I order you to fire. Nelson, this is a civilian vessel. You've been commissioned by the United States Navy to make contact.
Defend ourselves only if attacked. So far, I haven't seen that saucer commit any act of aggression that warrants...
He's not wrong. If sitting there looking at somebody is an act of aggression, every band who's ever played a concert has faced more aggro than they ever imagined.
My lights.
Okay, that might be a little aggressive. Every electrical system on the boat is out, including environmental, which means air circulation, which means pretty soon the oxygen is going to get real thin down here. But suddenly everybody notices they're moving. The saucer has locked some kind of magnetic force on them and is slowly bringing them up. If it can get them to the surface in time, they might survive this.
It's pulling us up along with the saucer.
There's a lot of water between here and the surface. Very little air.
I told you we should have used those torpedoes when we had the chance, Nelson.
He'll spend the rest of the episode whining, "I told you so," over and over. It's every bit as annoying to Nelson as it is to the rest of us, so at least we can all suffer together. And Nelson has a question for him. That thing knocked out all electrical power to the entire sub with a little bit of Morse code. If it wanted to destroy them, does he really suppose a couple more beeps and boops wouldn't do that too? This thing is behaving with a purpose. I think trigger-happy Tobin is angry because he can't pull his trigger right now. The rising suddenly stops around 500 feet. It'll put a momentary end to the two admirals' argument about whether they should have fired their torpedoes or not. I mean, it's a purely academic question now, but Trigger Happy has a driving need to be right, even if nothing he says is true.
Admiral, look.
What is it?
It looks like some sort of a weapon.
Give it a rest, Admiral. They already proved they don't need detachable or ranged weapons to deal with you. For those who care to look at it, it looks an awful lot like the saucer's equivalent of the mini-sub. And that's what it is, a shuttlecraft. It attaches itself to the hull above the main hatch and provides a watertight seal. Before we know it, Admiral Nelson is on his way to the mystery craft. He's by himself because there's no room for anybody else. Tobin is practically apoplectic and nobody cares.
Welcome, my friend. We have been expecting you. Why do you stare like that?
Because on this planet, mirrors don't usually talk by themselves. In case there was any doubt, he confirms he's from another planet.
We have been studying your planet for some time. Your language, custom, characteristics. You are dangerously sensitive to anything you do not understand. How do you mean? By my own physical appearance, for example. By your standards, it would be repellent. So, I have assumed the likeness of the one creature that could not possibly offend you.
I don't know. I think you put a few too many wrinkles over there. Ah, crap.
You know, you have more human traits than you realize, including the most obvious trait of all, fallibility. We are far more advanced than you are, but we do make mistakes. Our being here is one of them. Then your landing was a mistake? A serious blunder. That blunder has lost us one of our submarines and almost caused a worldwide panic. That was unintentional.
If that's the case, then maybe a posture of apology rather than hostility could be in order, yes?
Your attack on the Seaview, was that unintentional? Attack. Oh, yes, the ion ray. Its effects will wear off in about an hour.
The trouble is, the men on the Seaview don't have an hour. If they don't get power back or get to the surface, they're all dead.
I cannot surface. We have one chance. A breathing device that operates without power. It's called a snorkel, but it won't work under 100 feet. Very well. I will see that your craft is brought up to that depth.
While he's bringing them up, he explains the whole situation.
On our way through your solar system, we miscalculated the orbit of a large meteor. The resulting collision ruptured a line in our fuel system. That is why we are here. What do you plan to do? We have plans, I assure you. You are obviously a man of courage. Otherwise, you would not have accepted the invitation that brought you here. Are you also a man of curiosity? I'm a scientist, if that term has any meaning for you.
On the surface, the general has arrived at Seaview's location in a ship, and he's assessing the situation.
Directly below me, sir. The saucer and the Seaview. Depth, 380 feet.
Any response to your signals?
Negative, sir.
If the Seaview could answer, she would. All right. Rejoin your squadron. Stand by to attack.
Attack which, the saucer or the Seaview? In his mind, basically both. He says his orders are to destroy the saucer and the Seaview is expendable. I wish I was making that up. Down below, the visitor is as good as his word. He brings the sub up to periscope depth, Captain Crane deploys the snorkel, and the men are okay.
Jets. They're gonna bomb the saucer.
Yes, the men are okay. General Disaster is determined to do something about that.
What is it? Jets.
What's wrong?
You lied.
Nelson has no idea what he's talking about until the kabooms begin. Then he has to try and explain that that wasn't his sub, those were jets that he can't contact to wave them off because somebody disabled his radio.
The whole payload. And it didn't even put a dent in that saucer.
All right. Rejoin your squadron.
His solution? Call in more planes and ships and keep trying. If we can fire enough bombs, missiles, charges, and potato guns at it, it'll be $100 billion well spent if we can at least make a scratch on it.
Send them a radio message. They'll hold up the attack and negotiate. We cannot contact them. Why? You speak our language perfectly. Unfortunately, our communication system and your so-called radio are incompatible.
They have the technology to travel long distances in short times. They have a Fresnel light that can shut off someone else's electricity. Why would we assume they use basic electromagnetic waves for communication? Think how long it would take for a simple message to get back home if they didn't have something faster and more efficient. Then ask yourself why they'd care about being backward compatible with us. But it's going to get worse. He's already summoned another ship with more fuel so he can get home, and when it arrives, fully loaded and heavily armed, guess what humans are going to do? We'll treat it like an invasion, and they'll say, so be it, and wipe us out. He can't do anything about any of it because that fuel leak has rendered him almost as helpless as the Seaview. But Nelson may have an idea about that.
The core of your fuel system, heat units, nuclear power. That is right. The same basic fuel used on your submarine. Our fuel consists of uranium dioxide enriched with uranium-235. Yes, I know we have already analyzed it.
Why's he look so surprised? This guy knew enough about the electrical system to knock it out with a rhythmic floodlight. Nelson really thinks he hasn't had a peek at everything else, too?
The power is hardly adequate. When we want more power, we use strontium-90. In what form? Pellets?
He has the means to refine that into something he can use, but he still thinks the Admiral lied to him. They've been over that. Nelson can't contact the attackers, and neither can the aliens, so neither of them has anything to do with it. His people have lots of advanced technology, but Admiral Nelson was right. They're a lot more human than they want to admit. In particular, they have a tendency to be a little full of themselves. His options are trust the Admiral or go to war. He'll give the Admiral a shot. He thought the Admiral would find that repulsive. I have a feeling the worst Nelson would have done is offer him some psoriasis medication. Back on the Seaview, Nelson is hitting one obstacle to his plan. Guess what it is?
And be a prize acquisition for them. An Earth creature, something to keep in a bottle on their laboratory shelf.
You're talking nonsense, Walt.
So you said our radio will be working soon. Good. We'll announce to the entire world that you're back safe aboard the Seaview. Then we'll get out of bomber range and we'll blast that saucer apart.
Like you did before? Nelson doesn't have time for this.
Our orders are to capture and destroy that saucer.
Even if it means destroying ourselves?
That's the nature of war. Any form of combat is a calculated risk.
At the moment, my only war seems to be with you, Walt. Now get out of my way!
You deliver those strontium pellets, Admiral. Or if you allow that saucer to escape, you'll be charged with insubordination.
If I'm Nelson, I'm saying bring it on. Let's talk about who was making rational decisions today. Crane is here with the strontium.
Captain Crane. As your superior officer, I'm assuming command of this submarine. I order you to put Admiral Nelson under arrest.
The fact is, superior officer or no, it takes a lot to take command of a boat away from its captain. On that sub, the captain is one step below God himself, and if someone like Tobin is going to relieve him and take over, he'd better have a mighty good reason. Thing is, it's pretty much up to the captain to decide that.
As you wish, sir. By order of the United States Navy, Admiral Nelson, you are to be confined to your quarters until further notice.
Crane!
I guess he decided Tobin has a legitimate gripe. We'll get this all sorted out after he delivers the strontium. Oh, by the way, somebody was yelling at the time and he didn't hear the part about not delivering it.
Excuse me, sirs. Captain Crane said you're having some trouble with this door.
That was a nice touch. The alien looks like Captain Crane now, and all he can say is, thank you. Back on the Seaview, Sparks is trying desperately to reach the attacking fleet.
All naval units in position, pass the word to attack.
Sir, we've re-established contact with the Seaview. They report their captain is being held on the saucer as a hostage.
Notify all units to hold assault formations. We'll give them 10 minutes to retire to a safe distance, then attack.
With one of our men aboard, sir?
If they don't turn him loose in 10 minutes, yes.
I signed on to this man's army to blow stuff up, and by gum, I'm gonna blow something up.
Admiral, escape device approaching.
It's Crane. They're returning him.
Get him aboard and we can attack.
Somebody please find him a dictionary because he has a stupid small vocabulary. Think about it, Admiral. You said Nelson would never come back. He came back. You said as quick as the ship had the strontium, they'd blow you up. They didn't. You said Crane wouldn't be back. He's back. It seems to me at some point in the day you have got to get tired of being wrong.
Sparks, commit the commanding general of the attack force. Top priority.
You can't stop the attack now. They've got their orders.
You better pray that saucer gets away in time.
Tobin rose to the rank of Rear Admiral after he caught the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in bed with the maid. That's the only way I can see that someone like him could gain so much rank. The saucer will get away all right, and it won't even blow anything up, much to Tobin's disappointment. He has no idea what to do with a friend. Remember that dictionary I mentioned? Yeah, he's not even sure he can spell it to look it up.
We haven't got a weapon that can touch it now.
Well, maybe it's just as well.
We could expect to see it again someday. I hope they'll remember they were treated as friends.
I remember, all right. I wonder if we will.
No, we won't, because first of all, they weren't treated as friends except by a select few, but more important, if there's one thing we've learned from history, it's that we don't learn from history. This is one of the most thorough indictments of the military machine that I have ever seen. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's why, if there is anybody out there, we do not put the military in charge of first contact. Any military of any country or people. If it doesn't look like what we expect a friend to look like, it's automatically an enemy. That attitude nearly cost humanity everything. The best thing the military could do with Tobin and the general is put them both on KP for a year to remind them where they came from. We're most all familiar with the stereotype picture of the soldier on KP with his knife and his massive bag of potatoes, but KP covers a lot more than that. Contrary to popular belief, KP stands for Kitchen Police, not Keep Peeling.
I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater.
Acquisition for them. An Earth creature, something to keep in a bottle on their laboratory shelf.
You're talking nonsense, Walt.
So you said our radio will be working soon. Good. We'll announce to the entire world that you're back safe aboard the Seaview. Then we'll get out of bomber range and we'll blast that saucer apart. Pellets, Admiral. Our orders are to capture and destroy that saucer.
Even if it means destroying ourselves?
That's the nature of war. Any form of combat is a calculated risk.
At the moment, my only war seems to be with you, Walt. Now get out of my way!
If you deliver those strontium pellets, Admiral, or if you allow that saucer to escape, you'll be charged with insubordination. Captain Crane, as your superior officer, I'm assuming command of this submarine. I order you to put Admiral Nelson under arrest.
As you wish, sir. By order of the United States Navy, Admiral Nelson, you are to be confined to your quarters until further notice.
Excuse me, sirs. Captain Crane said you're having some trouble with this door.
All naval units in position, pass the word to attack.
Sir, we've re-established contact with the Seaview. They report their captain is being held on the saucer as a hostage.
Notify all units to hold assault formations. We'll give them 10 minutes to retire to a safe distance, then attack.
With one of our men aboard, sir?
If they don't turn him loose in 10 minutes, yes.
Admiral, escape device approaching.
It's Crane. They're returning him.
Get him aboard and we can attack.
Sparks, commit the commanding general of the attack force. Top priority.
You can't stop the attack now. They've got their orders.
You better pray that saucer gets away in time. We haven't got a weapon that can touch it now.
Well, maybe it's just as well.
We can expect to see it again someday. I hope they'll remember they were treated as friends.
I remember, all right. I wonder if we will.
I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me. And all I gotta do is breathe underwater.
Admiral Tobin happens. Admiral, okay, come on, brain, was the apparent aggressor. Aggressor doesn't have a V in it. We must we? The main. Offer him some psoriasis medication. I can say psoriasis. Don't rearrange the words to make ungrammatical sentences, stupid.